Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! So nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello,
Now with this
nerds!
campaign, bang, dang, it's Andrew. Come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Oh my God! Welcome to the show, Roz and Brian. I am so excited because Yang often gets criticized for only having 18-year-old boys on Twitter who support him. And I don't think that describes any of the three of us right now.
Oh, for sure.
I'm so thrilled to have you on the show. Where are you calling in from?
Westfield, Massachusetts.
Oh, Westfield, Mass. How far is Westfield from Boston?
How far is Westfield from Boston?
I would say we're about a 2-hour drive thereabouts, Tom.
2 hours west of Boston. Got it. Awesome. Well, I'm sorry that I guess you guys are Patriots fans.
Are we?
Yeah.
We are,
Well,
for sure.
I'm sorry that you guys aren't going to get another ring, but I feel like you had enough already. You guys are good for about a decade or two.
Never enough. Never enough.
Cool. Well, let's get this started. First of all, just have you heard the great news that that Yang is making it into the next debate, which is fantastic,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Very excited.
I was about to get really angry and militant about that, and so I'm so happy that we don't have to we don't have to worry about exclusion of our man Andrew. I was. Did you watch the last debate? I actually didn't even watch. I just watched highlights since he wasn't in it. I couldn't get myself to watch
Did
it.
you see it?
No, I was not interested in the last debate. If he wasn't there, it was just like going to be so boring.
Yeah, exactly. Like you know what everybody's gonna say, whereas with Andrew, you often don't know what he's gonna say.
Exactly. Which is great. Yeah.
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 So tell me about so you are mother and son, right? So it's two generations.
Yes.
Right. So tell me a little bit about yourselves. Of course, we'll start with you, Roz, but then I would love to hear about you too, Brian.
Okay. Sounds good.
So where
about
does Roz's story begin?
Oh, you want me to talk about me just like that?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Like my life?
sure. Well, where'd you grow up? What
Okay.
some highlights, and then we'll jump into the present.
Okay. I grew up in Milford, Connecticut at the beach. Loved it. Had a wonderful family, a wonderful childhood.
Hmm.
Got married and wound up here in Massachusetts and have been here for 60 years. And my birthday is April Fool's Day, and I'll be 80,
And you'll be how old?
83.
83. Excellent. Well, you are a super. You seem like more like in your late 60s.
I feel like I'm in like my late 60s.
Ah, that's great. That's great. Good for you. What's your secret? How have you stayed so vibrant and youthful?
Well, I meditate every morning without fail, no matter where I am, here or on vacation. I have a dog that I walk every day. I'm out for probably 2 or 3 miles walking every day.
Wow.
Yoga right here at the community hall where I live. I live in an over 55 manufactured home village of 215 manufactured homes. And a big part of why I wanted to talk to you too, Tom, was I think the $1,000 a month for a lot of people up here who are simply on Social Security make a tremendous difference. They can't afford to, put on a new roof or, their car. They can't keep up their car. So everything Andrew says is just right on, really right on. And I'm very excited about his whole candidacy and campaign. And we've worked for him. I bought his shirt. I bought his clothes. I bought his hat. I bought bumper stickers. I did the phone banking. I did the phone writing, letter writing. And this week we're going to do the text banking.
Wow.
Does too.
Roz,
He does all that too.
So yeah,
you're putting us to shame.
Yeah.
between the two of us, Tom, we've written to over 100 Iowans. And as Roz indicated, we also have done some phone banking, and we're about to do some text banking. And, the thing that my mom mentioned about the Social Security is such a big concern among those who are retired and those who soon retire. As we all know, people in this country nowadays, very few of them are able to retire with integrity.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people in my mother's age demographic completely understand that the freedom dividend be stacking on top of Social Security. They hear about the freedom dividend and they see red and they're concerned about losing their benefits. When anything further, that's not what's going to happen at all. They're going to continue to collect Social Security, and over what they receive every month, they'll also get the freedom dividend, and that's a huge deal. That's a game changer for so many people. But again, as I talk to people in my mom's age demographic, most of them don't realize that, and so it's a big part of what we do is try to raise awareness and educate people about Andrew's platform and his various policy proposals.
Yeah.
I totally get it. Yeah. My mom is also in her 80s, and she is, it's interesting. She's sort of relocating. She's thinking about Florida, and I told her, and the sons told her, like, look, we're gonna make sure like you have what you need, and don't worry about money and that kind of thing. And I think she feels very reluctant to receive help from us.
Yeah, I understand.
And so I think had she had the freedom dividend, I think she would feel way more kind of like, a little bit more at ease. Oh, sorry, the delivery.
And independent, Tom. We want to remain
Yes.
as independent as we possibly can. It's important.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people forget that Social Security was introduced in, 1940. And the cost of living and the amount of time that a typical person had in retirement back then, it was very different than it is today.
Right.
And now we need to think about being retired for 30 plus 40 years sometimes.
Yes.
And it's not like 1940 where often people, didn't have as long of a retirement and certainly didn't have as costly of a retirement as we do these days.
Well, I've been working part-time for a long time too, Tom.
Wow.
Yeah, supplement my income. I had to do that.
Yeah.
I actually went back to work after I retired too. I worked.
What did you do?
I was an retired X-ray tech.
Oh, wow. So you're in the healthcare.
My final job was with the doctor in the doctor's office. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So
that's awesome. Yeah,
I've been retired for a while, but always working a little bit here and there just to supplement my income,
Yeah, no, a lot of folks, like, they have no choice. They have to, they just can't make ends meet. And then you just wonder, like, as a society, if someone, works their butt off for decades and decades and decades, at some point they should be able to take their foot off the gas a little bit.
Yes.
And so hopefully it's interesting because when I talk to my mom and some of her friends, I don't know if you've encountered this, Roz, but with your neighbors and such, but they a lot of times they don't believe, oh, that'll never happen. It's too good to be true, and how the numbers add up and that kind of thing. Have you encountered skepticism or incredulity?
It's funny that you say that because my friend's birthday party yesterday, and they were talking about the VAT, value added, and they were very upset about it. I tried to explain it to them. I guess I wasn't very good at it, but Brian this morning found an article that I'm going to copy and send, and it explains value-added tax.
Yeah.
I'm just afraid that everything was going to cost more. Tell me how it works.
Yeah.
So I have encountered some.
Okay, my dog is she's whining Hold on, I'll show you Daisy.
Oh,
Hello.
yeah, we have one too.
Hello, Nerd Dog.
I'm gonna let her out because she knows that the boys are having dinner and she likes to be under the table when they're eating dinner. Hold on, let me just let her out. What? I'll be right back.
Okay, no.
Daisy, come on. Oh, get out of here.
Just like here, huh?
Yeah, same thing.
Same
Okay.
thing here.
You know, she's a lab. She likes to eat. She knows that they're messy eaters.
That's good. It all works out.
Yeah. So, Brian, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where does your story begin?
Sure, Tom. I'd be happy to. So I was born and raised here in Western Massachusetts, and went to college and entered the workforce. About 15 years ago, I struck out on my own, and I've been self-employed for several years. And in the recent past, I've been assisting a family member who's impaired as a caregiver. And, I've experienced firsthand the challenges of caring for a family member who is impaired. I think in terms of the freedom dividend, again, that would be such a dramatic game changer for so many people in this country who are engaged in that kind of work. They can't get out and work because they're caring for a loved one who's sick or impaired. So their options are limited, and they really don't have an opportunity to be earning, meaningful income while they're caring for a loved one. So I'm really seeing this freedom dividend through that lens in the recent past. And I was already an enthusiastic supporter of the freedom dividend, but even more so now, after getting a taste of, assisting with a family member who's impaired. Some folks do that day in, day out, full time. But anyway, that's a little bit about my history. I'm a lifelong registered independent, so voted on both sides of the aisle. I've supported Republicans and Democrats alike, but I don't think I've ever been as enthusiastic about a candidate in all of my years that I am about Andrew. He is just, I believe, a once in a generation kind of a presidential candidate, and we're just super enthused to be backing him in any way we can.
Yeah, I agree. There's something special. There's some mojo going on right now, and it's really exciting. Someone in the audience was asking if you remembered the name of the VAT article, and if not, I can try and post it later. But they were just asking, do you know where it was from? Or
yeah, I think I saw it posted on the Base Camp group, Facebook group. But I've got a copy of it as well, and I can send it over to you.
Okay, yeah. If you want to email it to me later, and then I'll post it as a link for anyone in the replay.
I certainly will.
Yeah.
So, and Brian, when you were self-employed, what was the business that you were in?
So yeah, I'm a rare book dealer, Tom.
Ooh.
And sell rare books and manuscripts and documents and ephemera of all sorts. So that's what I did for many, many years and still do, part time. So
that reminds me of one of my favorite shows years ago. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Pawn Stars, like a pawn shop.
Yeah, sure.
And they would have that woman who's in the Romney family. Actually, she would come in and she would evaluate these old books and try and determine their value and things like that.
Actually, their Americana specialist that would periodically appear on the show was a good customer of mine. So it is.
Oh, is that right?
Small world. Yeah.
Do you have
19th century diaries?
Yeah.
That's if he gets 19th century diaries or 18th century diaries, the writing can be really bad and tiny and like. I spend a lot of time reading them.
Oh yeah.
On the highlights to put the story together. And this person who passed away many years ago, and some of them are famous.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Very exciting life.
Brian, or Roz, do you guys have anything in your collection from like American government or American history?
Not currently, but I've handled a number of really fascinating pieces, genre over the years, Tom. Yeah, yeah. It was, and still is a labor of love for me.
Yeah.
Fortunate to be able to earn a decent income while doing that work. But again, as I say today, the landscape is a little different for me because I am helping to care for an impaired family member.
Right.
So that's demanding a lot of time
Yeah.
and really beginning to more fully appreciate the challenges caregivers in this country are on a daily basis. So again, we can't tout highly enough that freedom dividend. And I know even though it's Andrew's flagship policy proposal, there's so much more to his platform than just the freedom, and we know and appreciate that as well.
Mm-hmm.
For example, your data and my data being our respective personal property,
Right.
and the faucet, as it were, on that data. Democracy towers. I'm a supporter of that policy proposal, and so we've done a deep dive into Andrew's platform, and we both love a lot of what we see there.
Yeah, your point about the providing care for members of the family, it's a very profound one, in my opinion, because it's what you want families to do. You want families to take care of each other, but the economics of it are kind of misaligned. They don't make it easy to do the right thing.
That's
right?
so true.
Well said.
Well said.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This particular family member didn't want a stranger coming into her day out. That created a lot of anxiety and distress. So, it doesn't have to be that way with a family member that she knows coming in all the time. But you're exactly right, Tom. Well said.
And Tom didn't walk the dog anymore. And that was a big stress for her, too.
Yeah.
So she had to get a scooter, but you can't go out in New England in this kind of weather. So really is housebound. And
Yeah.
I see the work that is involved.
Yeah, that's a reality so many families are faced with day in, day out that we don't see or hear very much about. But again, the freedom dividend would be such a dramatic game changer in that area.
Totally.
Yeah,
Now,
totally.
you guys are living in the great state of Massachusetts. I understand that you guys have a senator who's running for president. I mean, so tell me a little bit about how your sort of selection process. How did you end up in the Yang Gang? It's not the most sort of probabilistic place for a Massachusetts voter to end up.
True.
I was in the Warren camp.
Mhm.
I truly was. My son came home one day a few months ago, and he had been listening to NPR on his radio.
Mhm.
Mom, we've got to turn this show on. Joe Rogan, the man's,
Mhm.
he was interviewing Andrew Yang. And I said, who's Andrew Yang? So we turned on the YouTube and listened to him from the very first time. I just was so impressed. I said to my son, I haven't been this excited since Truman. So this is really big.
That's a great quote, by the way.
I haven't been this excited since Truman. That was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, he is, I'll bet. So I just got interested and involved in what he said. And he's so sincere, so down to earth. He's got such a great sense of humor. He's so honest. He's got the answers. He's just got the answers. And then you see the debate and everybody else is just like retreads. Think of it any other way. I think that's horrible thing to say, but it's just, he's got it. He's just got it.
Now, Roz, you being someone who's followed politics for a good while and being in New England, I was curious, what was it like with JFK? I mean, that must have been magical. Was it? Or I don't know.
JFK was big. In the state of Massachusetts, he was most loved. Yeah, he was a great man, a great, wonderful man. And very sad, that whole family
Yeah, I mean that guy. It feels like that type of leaders is kind of once in a generation. Like they don't come around every 4 years.
Yeah, we really lucked out with JFK and now
Yeah, yeah.
Andrew Yang. Really and truly. Yeah, the JFK years were pretty exciting.
Maybe someday people will say he's like the Asian JFK.
That would be great. That would be really great. Sure. Yeah.
So, Tom, you mentioned Massachusetts being Warren country, and Tom supported Warren prior to learning about Andrew Yang.
Right.
And what a lot of people don't realize is the western, more rural part of Massachusetts, which is where we're located, really purple and kind of red in places.
Right, right.
That's kind of the landscape here. When we mention Massachusetts to people, they automatically think that we're blue, and that's not necessarily the case out here. So it's a real interesting kind of a dynamic in this part of the state.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. I used to live in Seattle, and a lot of people would assume Washington State is ultra progressive. And it's true, like on the western side of Washington State, and then the eastern side of Washington State can be quite conservative and can feel like a different, completely different state in some ways.
True.
And so I guess Massachusetts is similar, where you start looking a little bit like Pennsylvania. You start looking like you kind of move back and forth on that western part of Massachusetts, and hopefully. So what's it like on the ground over there? When you talk to people about Yang, I mean, he's not a household name yet. How's that going?
Well, when I talk to the people up here, I still get, who's Andrew Yang? I'm in the white-haired group up here.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just have no idea who he is. They know about Biden and Saunders, of course. They've been around for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not knowledgeable yet on Andrew Yang, but I'm trying. We can't put any political signs in our yards. I can put them all over my car.
Yeah.
The car is highly decorated with Yang memorabilia.
Yeah. Yep.
And so
my hat.
I
should have worn my hat today.
We'll get you. I always forget to put on my Yang stuff when I'm doing the show as well.
Yeah, I can understand that. I was so excited I forgot my hat.
Yeah. So where do your neighbors get their information? Do you feel like they're trying to learn about all the candidates, or are they just like, hey, that's politics, I'm not really tuned in until before I have to vote? Or, why is it that they don't know more about Yang by now in that, I feel like he's been at most of the debates. He's getting a little bit of more coverage than he has in the past. What do you think is the reason why so many folks have never heard of him yet?
I think from, my age category, the people that I know, like yesterday I was at the birthday party and I did convince two of my friends that Andrew Yang was the one, and when the party was over, they were both, we're voting for Yang. We're definitely voting for Yang. Party, there were only 5 of us. The other two party we're concerned about the value-added tax, and I can explain it to them thoroughly, or even to tell you the truth. So when Brian sent me that article this morning, I was very excited about it, which will go on to them. But why do you think they haven't heard of Andrew? I think many of them are kind of stuck, like with the older candidates. I think they feel, I want to say safe.
Familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. Familiar. That's a much better word. Thank you. I think they feel familiar. And, but like I say, I keep trying. I wear the hat and the shirt, and I got the car driving around the corner all the time. And I'm trying. And
I will say this about that question too, Tom, that for me anyway, from my perspective, there's been a distinct trajectory, whereas a few months ago it was Andrew Yang. Never heard of him.
That's true.
Today, I was talking to a guy at the gym a couple of days ago. He's like, "Oh yeah, Yang. I like that guy, but I don't know if he's got a chance to win." So the context of the conversation has certainly shifted. So over time, as time has gone on, I think more and more people have become aware of Andrew Yang, certainly in our neck of the woods. But there's still, work to be done for sure.
And yeah, in Massachusetts. And it's funny, Tom, because this morning I got a phone call from my daughter, and she said, "Hey, Mom, did you know that some people are already getting $1,000 a month from Andrew Yang?"
I was shocked.
Yeah, she said one girl's going to pay off her college, and they're going to fix up their car. And I'm like, yeah, he's taking that out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So it's slow to come, but it's coming,
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people don't appreciate, it may not be as obvious the personal sacrifice that Andrew and his family are making.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
it's just, it's not like he's done well. He's sold a successful business, and he certainly has resources available, but he's in his 40s. He's got to take care of those kids. They got to go to college, and he's got all the bills that we do. He's not, part of some dynasty.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He worked hard.
That sacrifice is just tremendous. It's tremendous.
I can't honestly believe, Tom, how he keeps going. Because we watch his YouTubes every night, and he goes from one to the other to, City Hall in Davenport up to, I don't know where he's going, Decatur?
Multiple events.
Yeah, multiple.
Yeah. He's like got boundless energy. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
I don't either. And he's fresh every time. I mean, in terms of fresh with how he looks and
oh yeah.
Yeah, in that way.
And then when he's in interviews, I mean, he makes it look effortless.
Exactly.
And I was reading the transcript for the New York Times editorial board interview with him, and I was thinking to myself, how does he? They were asking him, like, how many aircraft carriers do we currently have in the Navy, and all these kinds of questions. I was like, whoa, like they are hitting him from all directions, and he really maintained composure and had really thoughtful answers that I for sure don't think President Trump would have been able to sit through like a multiple hour interview like that. And I think a lot of the other, even the Democratic candidates, I don't think they have as nuanced and thoughtful and detailed and clear perspectives on such a variety of topics. Like I've never heard Warren or Biden talk about artificial intelligence or the World Data Organization. These are things that we should care about for the next 50 years. But, and I can't blame Biden and Warren and Bernie because they didn't grow up, with so much technology as central to their lives. But I feel like Yang's very plugged into where the puck is going.
Yes.
And not just sort of kind of regurgitating like old proposals.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Tom, the other piece to that too is he's not taking cheap shots at the other candidates, hitting below the belt or being overly critical and judgmental, which is so often the case. That's the national pastime here in politics. And it's such a breath of fresh air that Andrew Yang remains laser focused on the challenges that we're confronted with and the various problems we have to solve. I think that's got broad appeal. It transcends party lines. Like I said to you earlier, I'm a lifelong independent, both Democrat and Republican, but I'm all in, Yang gang for life.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
As well.
I'm amazed at his brilliance, Tom. He has no notes. He gets questions on all kinds of topics around and the United States, and he has the answer. He has the answer. He's just a brilliant man.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And he, I mean, part of his strength is that he's very authentic and he's has a great sense of humor.
Yes.
And he's willing. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He's got a self-deprecating sense of humor, and he's very humble. I think the reality is, he is, from a cognitive ability point of view, he is probably in the top 1%, of the population. And if you look at his age and when he graduated from college and stuff, I'm pretty sure he moved through very quickly.
Mhm.
And they talked about sort of how he used to go to these camps for, gifted children. So he's no
yeah.
dummy.
No,
And,
well, he's brilliant.
and I know we currently have someone who calls themselves a stable genius, but I think he's actually like Andrew Yang's a real genius.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No
Yeah.
notes. He never has any notes. It's all there. It's all in there.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's very annoying. Like sometimes I see these videos and I'm like, wait a minute, he plays the piano too, and now he's skateboarding. It's like,
Yeah,
what does this guy not do?
Nobody likes a show off.
Yeah. And then the basketball and
Oh yeah.
it goes on and on.
He's got the math, but then he can also write well and communicate. He's very eloquent and articulate and precise with his language. I mean, he's got like the whole package. And I just gotta believe that he would be a game changer in DC. On the other hand, I also I'll be honest, I was also really excited about Obama when he ran, and I supported him both times.
Mhm.
But I kind of felt like Washington DC just sort of like built a wall around him, and
They did. They did.
he got a lot
right.
done. But I feel like,
Mm.
especially like the Republican Party, I didn't feel really gave him a chance.
They didn't.
And
Mm.
I wonder. I kind of feel like maybe with Yang, though, I don't know, maybe I'm being optimistic, but I kind of feel like Yang, if there's someone on the Democratic Party who could cut deals and find a third way
Mhm.
with Republicans, I feel like Yang might be able to, if there's anyone, like he seems like he's kind of not so partisan. He's just focused on problem solving. But I don't know. What do you guys think in terms of if we got there? Do you think he could try and get that gridlock a little bit loosened up so we could get something done?
I absolutely believe in him, and I absolutely believe what you just said. Yes, I think people will work with him. He's a kind man. Like
Mm.
he doesn't take any cheap shots at anybody. So yes, I do believe the walls would come down for him. I do.
The other thing too is I've never had so many Republican friends say so many positive, encouraging things about a Democratic candidate in all my days. So that is palpably different, Tom, versus in Obama, for example.
There's true.
huge shift.
Yeah. Now, because my family is half MAGA, half Yang, and the MAGA side of my family, I will say that they don't like Yang, but of all the Democrats, they're like, well, yeah, he's not as bad as the others. And for them, like that's like high praise. So who knows? Who knows? I mean, they definitely don't like Bernie or Warren. And I think they don't take Biden seriously. I think the president has done a good job labeling Biden in a very kind of dismissive way. And then Biden hasn't done himself that many favors because he hasn't really like knocked the cover off the ball at any of these debates. And
to us, it's absolutely mystifying on so many levels that he's been buoyant atop some polls for so long. We just don't get it.
Not at all.
Familiarity, I think, is a big part of that. I really don't know what else would have come for it, truthfully.
Personally, I think they're both too old. I really, the president, that's a tough job, especially in this day and age with what the world looks like now. You know, I just think that they're too old. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah. And that job, I mean, you look at any president, like pictures of them when they get sworn in and then when they are leaving, and it doesn't look like 8 years.
Yeah.
It looks like they've been there for like 30, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I agree. And
100%. you're in that age demographic, so you can speak to this.
What's that?
Being too old for
no way. I wouldn't even have the energy for it, you know? So I just think that they should retire, sit back, Let the young folks take over because
And I also think there can be an important and profound role for folks like Biden and Bernie and Warren as advisors or
Yes.
as sounding boards or as partners in the Senate, which we will need.
Mhm.
But I would imagine the presidency is probably like a 16-hour-a-day job, maybe 6-7 days a week.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
making literally life and death calls probably all the time.
Mhm.
And I know that I know that President Trump has a different schedule and he has a lot of executive time and stuff, but I would want a president who's really leaned in
Yes,
and
yes.
leaves it
Yeah.
all on the field, right?
Tuned
Yes,
in. Yep. To everything. Yep,
absolutely.
that's happening in the world.
Kind of like the Seahawks do. Sorry. I still have some wounds from Super Bowl 49. We won't go into that one. But yeah, so I think one of the things I'm curious about to get your take on is are you thinking that New Hampshire could be a breakthrough moment for Yang? Because it seems like independent-minded, pragmatic kind of folks who are not afraid to kind of pick a candidate that may not be, the conventional wisdom pick.
Mhm.
Or do you think I'm, just being too optimistic, or do you think what are you thinking about Iowa versus New Hampshire and South Carolina? Being so close to New Hampshire, you might have some insights.
I think that New Hampshire is in my heart. I think they're leaning his way. I really do. I think he's got a chance in New Hampshire. I certainly hope Iowa he comes in first. And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I do think he's got a real shot. I think that New Hampshire is up for grabs. That's at least as it looks now. And I think if we can build a meaningful wave in Iowa, tend there, place in the top 5, ideally even perhaps the top 3. I think that will impact, the voting in New Hampshire. But historically, New Hampshire is, fiercely independent. So it's anybody's. I think it's anybody's game. It's up for grabs. Truthfully, I think in New Hampshire anyway.
Yeah, you raised an interesting point earlier, Brian, about how so we've gone from nobody's heard of Yang to maybe they've heard of him and maybe they kind of like him, but they don't think there's any chance.
Right.
And I also think that ties into why Biden is doing so well, because I suspect for a large number of Democratic voters, what they want is whoever they think can beat Trump.
Yes, that's true.
And in a way, Biden is kind of like the safer bet. He's a known quantity. He is trustworthy. I think he's trustworthy. He comes across as authentic. And so maybe they're thinking, well, why would we go with a long shot candidate and then wake up and have another Trump administration? And so I appreciate that. I also think, to your point, Brian, if we had a 4th place in Iowa and even a 3rd place in New Hampshire, the game changes.
Agreed.
Suddenly, it's not this long shot guy who likes math. It's more like, oh no, he's number 3. He beat Buttigieg in New Hampshire. He got more than Klobuchar in Iowa. Like, this guy's a serious kind of contender now.
Yes, absolutely. It would change the landscape really immeasurably. I was originally, you mentioned Buttigieg. I'm saying that correctly, but I was originally a Buttigieg supporter. I had heard him on NPR radio, and I remember thinking, and I texted my nephew, who's very politically aware, and I said, "You got to pay attention to this Buttigieg." And he said, "I've never heard of him, but I'll look for him." About later, I heard Yang, and it was Pete who? It was all over.
Yeah.
He had such substance, and he resonated with me at a very deep place. And I was all in from that point forward. But prior to Yang, I was looking at Buttigieg. He's articulate, very, very, just sort of easy to listen to, and And so, yeah, I was intrigued, but then I heard Yang, and it was game over, for me.
What about you, Roz? Were you tempted to consider Mayor Pete?
No, not at all. Not ever. No. Once I saw Andrew Yang and heard Andrew Yang, it was it. I was all in. But you know what, Tom? It's like once in a lifetime. We've always had dogs, but once in a lifetime, you get a dog. That's it. He's got everything. He's got that special whatever it is. And this shelter dog that we've had for 6 years, he's the heart of the house. And that's how I feel about Andrew Yang. That once in a lifetime, you get a man like this running for president, young enough to do the job, smart enough to do the job, dedicated, sincere, kind. He's it. He's
it. Yeah. I don't think they don't make people like Andrew Yang. They don't just come off a conveyor belt and you just meet them every other day, right? Yeah. He's very special. And maybe when we look back in history, we'll say, wow, we needed a very specific kind of leader at a very specific time.
Yes.
And the stars aligned. Yes. And here we had President Yang kind of come into the fore. And so I agree with you. Before we move on, I do want to call out that Justin O'Neill has given us a super chat and a donation of $2. And what that does is it goes towards my Spanish audio dubbing fund, because a lot of my Andrew Yang interviews, I get professionally dubbed into Spanish.
Awesome.
And then they're then available at yangespanol.com. So you can see 3 Andrew Yang kind of podcast interviews with me and some others in the third one, like Paget and Kai and Aaron, interviewing Andrew in a long form and letting people know for whom Spanish is their first language, so they can get to know him. And then I'm hoping to do that for the Evelyn interview. What do you guys think of Evelyn Yang?
Oh, I think she's sweet. I think she's lovely. Yeah, I like her a lot. She speaks well, comes across well. A lovely woman.
Yeah.
What do you think, Brian?
Agree completely. I can't add to what my mom has said about her. Just fabulous. I've seen her in a couple of interviews. I was surprised at how, fluidly articulate and comfortable she appeared. Really impressed with her.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. Anita Yang. So thanks again, Justin, for and I know Justin likes the term contender. He is a contender. And then Anita Yang says, "We love boomers."
So, right on.
And Roz, you are the poster person for what a boomer for Yang can do. I mean, not only are you supporting him and you're so open-minded about him, but you're also you're putting in the work. You're not just saying, "Oh, I kind of like him." You're making calls and writing letters. I mean, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm all in, Tom.
Yeah.
I'm all in. And we both are.
I think you guys are inspiring people, because now Mad Max 41 just donated $50 to the Nerds for Yang Spanish Audio Fund. So thank you very much, Mad Max. You guys are rocking it. So let me tell you a little bit about how I'm thinking about this administration, and then I'd love to get your reaction. So what I feel like the next 4 to 6 weeks are kind of like make it or break it for us, because obviously for those who aren't watching the calendar as closely as others, in the next few weeks, not only do we have obviously Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, but we have Super Tuesday with hundreds of delegates at stake. And that's going to be just about 5 or 6 weeks from now. And so I kind of feel like this is make or break time for us. And let me just briefly share my screen. So I know people know it kind of intellectually what the calendar looks like, but let me just let me just put it on the screen so we can all see it together. Like, we are now January 26th. So next week is February. So next week you've got Iowa. A week later, you've got New Hampshire. About 11 days later, Nevada. By the time that February is done, you've got South Carolina. And then the first Tuesday of March, Alabama, Arkansas, California with 415 delegates up for grabs, North Carolina, Texas, Virginia. I mean, it's in the next 5 or 6 weeks. If we have a great next 5 or 6 weeks, we make history. If we don't, it will be extremely hard to claw our way back. And so I just wanted to underscore for everybody out there who's volunteering, who's donating, who's canvassing or talking to friends, like talking to at least 3 people every day. Like, these are the kinds of things, like, now is the time to do it. Because if anything happens, like, if for whatever reason, like, we don't make it all the way to the finish line, I think we all want to look back and say, we did everything we could, you know?
Yeah, right, Tom. We don't want to leave anything on the table.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. Yeah.
And so let me ask you about, like, you obviously have, I forgot, I should have mentioned Massachusetts is also on Super Tuesday, and you guys do have 91 delegates. I didn't mean to exclude mentioning Massachusetts.
No problem.
Let me ask you, like, you've been in Massachusetts for a long time. Warren is, you know her well, or, you know, you've been seeing her in action for a long time. Like, what is your take on Warren, and what was it that she didn't have that you felt the need to kind of look further across the field?
Well, I was for Warren.
Right.
Very beginning. The last couple of years, I've been watching her and listening to her. Lately, I just feel, of course, once Andrew Yang came on board, it was all over for Warren. But lately, I just feel, for me, my own opinion, she's gotten a bit erratic. I feel that she's just not as sincere. I certainly don't think that she knows the problems anywhere near as well as Yang does. Artificial intelligence and so many things coming up that he's got his finger on the pulse of, that she just doesn't know. She just doesn't know.
Yeah.
And so I can't back her. It would be impossible for me to do that. We've got stake right now, Tom. So much at stake. But where to begin?
I mean, I agree. I'm impressed by her. I mean, we have a pretty good field, in fairness, and I am impressed by Warren, and I definitely feel like I believe her, that she's really fighting for the little guy.
I've always felt that about her.
Right.
Sure.
And so I think her heart is in the right place. I feel like she's very focused on most of her diagnosis is about, well, there's these big evil companies, and just we need to kind of beat them down into submission.
Right.
And I mean, for sure, I think Andrew also calls out the kind of the strategies that companies use to avoid paying corporate income tax. And I don't think Andrew's rolling over for the big companies, but I also think he takes a broader approach that is, well, it's not just that. That's not the only answer. That's not the silver bullet to all of our problems.
Right.
And he just has a more holistic approach. But and then when you were talking about Mayor Pete, Brian, I'd be curious. My take on Mayor Pete is super, super articulate, clearly extremely bright, Harvard, Rhodes Scholar, all that great stuff. What a great resume, served in Afghanistan. I kind of like that he's mayor of a small town. Like, it's a sort of citizen leader back, like, in the days where we didn't have, lifetime Washington, D.C. politicians and stuff like that. The thing that I'm not feeling from Buttigieg is sometimes I feel a little bit like it's it's not as authentic and as real as Andrew. I feel like sometimes he's so artful with his language and he's so clever that it's all kind of a great show. And I still don't feel like I really know who is Pete Buttigieg, like get to know him as a person. But I was curious, like, Brian, what was it about that you didn't feel like Pete had before you kind of discovered Yang?
Yeah, great question, Tom. What initially attracted me to Mayor Pete was exactly what you just talked about. He's very articulate. His tone was soft, but he seemed, at least for me, to lack substance. I must say, after learning about, again, there are two time frames in my life: pre-Yang and post-Yang, and so in the Yang era, I can see that he's void of substance. I clicked on Andrew's website way back, and it was top heavy with all kinds of detailed policy.
Right.
I was really blown away. And that's not at all what I got from Pete. And in the recent past, I've noticed that Pete tends to take some of the talking points that Andrew introduced to the conversation in the national dialogue and sort of, make them his own.
Yeah.
And he feels very politician-like.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, if you're running for president, hopefully you should have thought about it enough to have a very solid platform. Of course, like, you want people that are learning and evolving. But when Pete started, I remember looking on his website, I'm like, well, what are his positions?
Right.
And it was not easy to find. Whereas obviously Yang had, from day one, it felt like he had a plan for, probably 100 different things.
Yeah.
And it was ironic because, like, then the media had always talked about how Warren has the most plans and the most proposals, but I don't know if that math really adds up if you look at Yang stuff. But
well, Tom, I just want to say that when I saw Yang's interview on Iowa Press, it was fantastic. Everything he said, it was just a wonderful, wonderful interview. Yeah.
How many of your neighbors watched that interview, though? That's the rub, right?
I don't even know how many of my neighbors get YouTube. I couldn't tell you. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think I struggle with this potential phenomenon where those of us who are pro Andrew have a voracious appetite for learning as much as we can about him and his policies and his interviews and Evelyn and, on, and Scott Santens and all these guys. But it's kind of binary because then there's this other group that doesn't have time or maybe doesn't have a lot of interest or access, and they know nothing about him. And there's very little in the middle.
I agree. Yeah.
And so if you are a kind of lower information voter and you're not a political, like, you're deep into it like we are, I worry that, the easy option is like, Biden, you're kind of familiar with him. You associate him with Obama, which was generally a successful presidency. And that's just where you go. Or maybe you keep hearing about Warren, or of course, you know about Bernie as well. And it just, I do worry that people going to the primaries are going to vote on name recognition and they won't have done as much homework. Maybe because they just don't believe that, any of those other candidates are worth looking at. This then goes into that viability problem where if they don't think Yang is viable, they're not going to bother looking into him. If they don't bother looking into him, they're not going to support him, which then makes him look less viable. And how do you break that cycle?
And that's why Iowa and New Hampshire are so important. They're really going to set the table on so many levels. And I would urge your viewers to do anything and everything in their power between now and Iowa and New Hampshire to raise awareness, educate people. As my mom said earlier, we've written 100 letters to Iowa voters. We've phoned back We're yanging people on a daily basis, friends, family members, strangers, doesn't matter. And it is all hands on deck at this juncture. And you conveyed that very well throughout the interview here. And we urge people to get on board, lock arms, and make this happen.
Stay calm and keep on yanging.
Right.
Yeah. Amen, Roz. I agree. Stay calm and keep on yanging. That needs to be a T-shirt. It's one of those things where there are enough of us. I mean, he alone had 400,000 donors. Mm-hmm. If you assume for every 10 supporters, one is writing a check, I mean, that's 4 million supporters out there. If every supporter reached out to 2 or 3 people, you're gonna hit 12 million citizens.
I convinced my 89-year-old sister to vote for him.
Oh, hey, well, that's fantastic, Roz.
That was a tough one.
Yeah. So, like, what's your pitch when you talk to your peers and try and get them to cross over? I
just tell them that, again, he's got the pulse. He's got his finger on the pulse of every problem. This is a scary world, Tom. Mm-hmm. It really is. Especially scary, I think, for a lot of people on Social Security. What's happening all over the world. And when he said Amazon takes in $20 billion a year and doesn't pay any taxes, I have to tell you, I almost fell off my chair. It's unbelievable. So it's just, I told her all of these things. And the $1 a month will help her too. And she came back with a few arguments, that she likes Biden, she likes Sanders. They're in her age category. And so we had a few words back and forth. And finally she said, okay, I think I'll vote for Andrew. But we'll see. She's a feisty 89-year-old,
That's great. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm glad that she was willing to consider him.
Me too.
And to be clear, I think the number is 20 or 30% of malls or malls are closing. Mm-hmm. And actually last year, Amazon's annual revenue was over $200 billion, and like I am pro American business and pro growth, but you got to pay your share, man. Like if you're making $200 billion in revenue, you can pay more than taxes than the 3 of us did. And the reality is the 3 of us paid more than Amazon did as a corporation. Yeah.
And, in fairness, Tom, I think that's another talking point that Andrew brought into the national spotlight and dialogue.
Yes.
I really hadn't heard about a lot of this prior to Andrew articulating so beautifully eloquently on all these points. So he has already, I think, made a tremendous impact on this race. And but we have a lot further to go for sure.
Yeah, and it also ties into your original point about the VAT, because if we had a VAT, then corporations, it is way harder for corporations to minimize their corporate income tax in a VAT environment. I mean, I think a lot of people said to me, like, on Twitter and stuff, oh, well, why should you penalize Amazon? They didn't make a profit, so they shouldn't have to pay any taxes. And I think it sort of does not acknowledge the fact that Amazon doesn't just coincidentally end up with 0 net income at the end of the year. Like, that wasn't an accident.
And, gaming the tax code is a national pastime here.
Right.
I don't know it.
Yeah.
And Andrew's talking about it.
There are armies of accountants and lawyers who will help any corporation do it within the way the laws were written. So it's all legal. And it's just so it's just not fair to say, oh, poor Amazon, they didn't make any income. Like, why should you tax them? They can afford to pay a little income. They can pay a little taxes.
And I like his democracy dollars too, Tom. He wants to get lobbyists.
Totally. Like if you think about that democracy dollar idea, and I mean, if you gave everyone $100 and just quick math, 300 million people, but 200 million, let's say, voting age. I mean, it's only 20 billion a year. in a program that would fundamentally change how elected officials will have a new level of independence and remove their reliance on a small number of giant check writers.
Yes.
And I also agree it would make the debate stage way more diverse because it's part of the problem is that it's expensive to run for office.
Exactly.
And you gotta raise money. And you hear about these senators who are well-intended and congressmen who have the right motives, but they say half of their time is fundraising.
Yeah.
And I mean, imagine if we already know he had 400,000 donors. So that's 40 million. If every Yang supporter gave their 100 democracy dollars, Yang would have 40 million on top of the 15 million he just raised. So that would be a game changer. But in reality right now, like Bloomberg and Steyer are writing $10 million checks seemingly like without a drop of a hat every week.
I know.
And it like that last debate, like I love Steyer's commitment to fighting climate change. And I feel like he's a good person. But come on, man, like you've got Yang, who's got a real movement behind him, has more ideas than just the climate change stuff, and has energized such a large contingent of voters, many of whom were previously unengaged and are coming over from independents and some even Trump voters. Like, why wouldn't the combination of Steyer's resources and Yang as a leader and Yang's ideas be a much more potent solution?
Wow.
But instead, like the system, and it's very frustrating for me because the DNC, I know we're excited that he got into the last debate, but they're going to keep ratcheting up those requirements. And if you want to move up in the polls, there is a way to do it. You spend tens of millions of dollars like Steyer did. And I just feel like this is a very strange world where basically the DNC is saying, if you want to be on this stage, we don't care that 400,000 people like you enough to give you money. We don't care that you're the number 1 or 2 search for person on Google and YouTube. We don't care that you're the fastest growing Twitter audience. If you don't do well in these polls, then sorry, you're not allowed to be on the stage. It just seems like so un-American.
It is.
Yeah.
It is
twisted,
very twisted,
perverse.
And when he told the story about the artificial kidney, when Andrew was talking about that, that people on dialysis, you heard that story, right? About the artificial.
I did.
I was again blown away. That's un-American.
Yeah, and I think that's an example of, I think Yang goes into multiple layers of the problem. He doesn't just say, hey, healthcare is too expensive, we need single payer. I think he really tries to understand like the root cause and going like asking why 5 or 6 times. To really have, and in order to do that, you have to have a certain level of curiosity and intellectual interest in this kind of stuff. And I mean, wouldn't that just be a dramatic change of style from obviously the current president, but also even for the rest of the Democratic field? I feel like Yang is just much more thoughtful. He seems like a voracious reader as well.
Yes,
and which is always a good sign.
Readers make leaders.
Amen, Roz. I love it. You're on a roll.
I love Andrew Yang.
So, hey guys, were there topics about either Yang or the campaign or your participation that we haven't hit? Because I know we said we would shoot for around 30, 45 minutes, and I see we're over an hour. Time just flew by.
I didn't realize that. Brian.
I would just want to encourage your viewership or a relatively younger audience that tunes into your.
Well, the biggest contingent is 35 to 45, so that we don't have a lot of youth, but sort of younger than a little bit younger than Roz. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I would encourage them to keep talking to their family, their parents, you know, feeding information to them about Andrew's campaign and the platform, and give them, digestible bits of information in formats that they can tune into. Yeah, that's really the only thing that comes to mind for me at the moment. How about you?
Keep it moving forward. Keep that momentum. He's about to peak.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like we're getting a surge. And let me ask you guys this. So one of the things is, we know that Yang is like if there were a YouTube primary, he would win by a landslide.
Yes.
But to your point, Roz, a lot of your peers and your friends and neighbors, they're not on YouTube all the time. So what, and Brian, you were emphasizing, like, give people information in a format that works for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of curious, like, Roz, when you're trying to Yang your friends or neighbors, what is it news articles, or is it like, how do you get the information to them in a way that's effective?
The only way that I can do it up here is by individually talking to them, like at the community hall or something like that. They don't like political signs in our village.
Right.
It's really one-on-one is the way I have to do it. I can't really knock on doors with a sign or anything.
But I've seen you suggest to your friends to pull up a certain website or AndrewYangIntro.com, I think, was one you suggested.
I have done that. Yeah. Yep. I have.
And a phone number that you've used, an 877 phone number that the campaign operates, which is really, really a great way for that age demographic.
That's right.
To sort of dial in literally and figuratively.
Do you have that phone number?
No, I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Oh, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Let me break away here for a second.
When we write our letters to Iowa, we put that intro to AndrewYang.com on there. I put on the Iowa Press interview because I love that. And then we put on the telephone number that anybody can call to find out more information about Andrew Yang. We have this number for you.
Just so you knows it, it's 877-926-4202. That's 877-926-4202. And I think it's like the numbers together make up Yang 2020 or something like that. There's
I think it's 877 Yang 2020.
Okay.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Yep. So we're putting that on our letters to Iowa.
I love it. Have you ever tried calling it? What is it? What happens when you call it?
Yeah, we both called it. It's Andrew. Snippets of Andrew being interviewed and in long form presentations and things of that nature. It's good stuff. It's good substance.
Oh yeah, and that other the website that we put on, that's got a bunch of YouTube interviews, and Iowa Press is one of them.
That sounds great. And what was that website?
Yeah, that was AndrewYangIntro.com.
Yep.
Okay, AndrewYangIntro.com. Let me share that one with people.
Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
Please do. Yeah, that has great information too. Text and video clips. Just terrific stuff.
All right. Now, before we wrap up, I just wanted to see, we have 118 people that are actually on the live stream watching with great interest right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, Roz, your voice is getting out there, and then this will be available on replay on YouTube, and then it'll have probably, I wouldn't be surprised if the typical Nerds for Yang interview might have like 1,000 views. So that'll help spread the word, and these little ripples will hopefully, add up. One of the things I wanted to see is if the audience has any questions, go ahead and type that into the chat, and I will keep an eye out for it. And while you guys are typing in those questions, let me ask you all another question, which is, if you didn't go for Yang, who would you support? And a favorite of the Yang Gang, who would you like to be Andrew Yang's running mate?
Whoa. I hadn't thought about it. I only think of him as winning.
I love it.
That's good. That's good.
Take this question, Brian. I think.
Sure. So, okay, if I weren't going to vote for Andrew, I would naturally support any ticket that he was on over and above any other candidate. So if, say, a Biden chose him as a VP pick, I would enthusiastically support that ticket. That's a great, I hadn't really thought much about that either, Tom, truthfully.
Who would you like to be underneath the Yang ticket in terms of his VP?
VP pick. You have any thoughts on that, Mom?
I think being a woman, I'd probably say Elizabeth Warren. Yeah. No, and also she's from Massachusetts, so maybe she'd look at our state a little bit harder.
Right.
Give us some more aid or something.
Now, why Warren? You mentioned as a woman, you'd like to see a woman on the ticket. But there's Klobuchar. There are other women that Yang could pick. Why Warren? Is it because of Massachusetts, or do you think that she's just fundamentally better than Klobuchar or stronger?
I think she's stronger than and secondly, because she's from Massachusetts. Sure.
Yeah.
And Andrew Yang himself has said that he believes organizations run optimally when they have both men and women in decision-making roles, right? So that would just be true to form for him if he were to pick a female VP. I love Marianne Williamson. I thought that her introduction to Andrew out in Fairfield, Iowa, I think it was really moving. And I haven't seen a lot of her, but I would certainly love to see more of her. And I would love to see her operating as a surrogate to the campaign out on the trail. I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Yeah, I agree with you that Williamson has a voice that is very unique and we don't hear a lot of and needs to be heard. And so I agree. I hope she will be a surrogate. For me, I for some reason I really like the Yang Booker combination.
And interesting.
I've seen some C-SPAN video where they interact together and they seem to really get along well, the two of them.
Chemistry there. For yeah.
So, that might be a cool team, but I mean, regardless, I think the Yang administration would be. And
I personally, I love Booker's hairstyle. I just want to put that out there.
Oh, yes. Yes. I see some resemblance there, Brian.
But you're right. There's a chemistry there between Andrew and Booker. I've noticed that on a couple of occasions. So that would be an interesting pick.
Yeah.
Now, some people say for the Biden thing, for Biden-Yang combo, some people say, oh, no, that's terrible. Like, we want the top of the ticket or nothing. But I kind of feel like, well, I don't see Biden as being a two-term president.
Right.
And so if Yang rolls in the pole position for the 2024 or 2024 primaries as a sitting vice president, and I would imagine that Biden wouldn't put his VP kind of in the attic the way a lot of old presidents used to do. I think Biden, because having been one, he would want to utilize Andrew.
I agree. Yeah, that's true.
Leverage Andrew.
So maybe, I mean, I know a lot of Yang gangers are like, no, he's got to be at the top or nothing. But I wouldn't turn down. I wouldn't encourage Yang to turn down VP if Biden got the nomination.
Oh, I don't think he'd turn it down. I think he wants to do anything he can do for this country to make it.
Yes.
So he wants to work. He wants to work for this country to make it better.
All right, we've got a couple questions. First one, do you believe, from Derek 11, do you believe the polls are inaccurate, or do you think we just have a lot of work to do?
Do I think the polls are inaccurate? I think they're pretty accurate. I think Yang is doing pretty good in the polls. That's my thought.
I'll just chime in real quickly on that. Just this morning, I shared a screenshot of the polls from just before Iowa in the 2004. It may have been when Kerry became the party's nominee. Iowa, Kerry was in the lowly single digits, and several other candidates in the race were at double digits. So even if they're accurate, I don't think that they really reflect Andrew Yang's support in this regard. There are so many independents and Republicans that are crossing over to his camp that I don't think that can be measured in a poll that takes the temperature of Democratic voters.
Yeah, I agree. I think Yang over-indexes for a lot of previously disenchanted and kind of apathetic voters.
Yes.
And the polls generally only look for what they call likely voters, people who have a history of voting. So I kind of agree with you, Roz, that I think the polls are directionally accurate because they are showing a growth in the Yang support, but they might be undercounting. And I guess the $1 million question is, when we see 7%, is it really 17%, or is it really 12%, or is it really 27%? Who knows? I guess to our earlier conversation, this is where Iowa and New Hampshire, you guys out there have the ability to change the course of history, and I'm so glad that Iowans and New Hampshire citizens take it seriously. Because if there were ever a time where we need to look at all of the candidates carefully, this seems like a crucial election. I know we say that every election, but this one in particular, and that's good for Yang. I think if Iowa and New Hampshire give him a real good look, then I'm willing to accept the will of the voters, and hopefully, fingers crossed they come through.
I agree.
All right, let's see questions from Anita, who's saying they are on the ground. Any predictions on Yang's chances? Brian, you hinted at maybe 4th or 3rd in Iowa. Was that your prediction, or was that your hope?
I don't know. My prediction is top 3, Tom. I think the ground game that his campaign is running there is very impressive. Having, phone banked and being online on a daily basis and watching Padgett's YouTube channel and Kai Watson's YouTube channel, the other sort of influencers. My sense, my gut level sense is that he is going to place in the top 3, and I would wager money on that. I don't know how you think or feel, Mom.
The same.
You're thinking top 3 in Iowa.
I am. I truly am.
Me too.
I hope you guys are right.
I hope so too.
If I were a betting man, and I was is it Foxwoods? Foxwoods in Massachusetts, right? The casino.
Foxwoods is Connecticut.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, over the line.
I used to have to drive to Foxwoods from when I lived in Boston. But if I were a betting man, and I know I'm going to get a lot of anger about this, but I'm going to say 4th in Iowa, 3rd in New Hampshire, and then that sets us up for a huge upset in South Carolina, maybe 2nd, and then Super Tuesday, who knows? But I would love for your guys' prediction to be correct. But I think either way, we just need to convince all of those people who like Yang, who just don't think he's viable, to see basically like what happened with Obama after Iowa. Because Obama, if you guys may recall, like it had very difficult, a lot of difficulty getting African American voters to support him until Iowa, and then it was like, oh, okay. If he's,
to use Andrew's language, he is going to exceed expectations in Iowa and New Hampshire.
Yeah. I would, and I think, frankly, at the way the mainstream media looks at it, 4th in Iowa would, in my opinion, and 3rd in New Hampshire would exceed expectations.
Oh, absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what the next question. So someone's Jennifer Montgomery saying, hey, well, what about Williamson as VP? Wouldn't she help with getting reparations passed? I like Williamson. I find that she's a breath of fresh air. Yes. I don't know if she has the gravitas and sort of like the nuts and bolts kind of execution capabilities that I would want in the executive branch. I feel like she could be a cabinet member or certainly a part of the Yang team, but I'm not sure she's got VP written on her. I know, Brian, you were kind of hinting at maybe you would consider?
Well, I love the idea, but it runs countergrain to some of the comments and remarks Yang has said himself. He would like a partner that's pretty plugged in and has the established connections inside the Beltway. And I just don't see that
Hmm.
in a Williamson. As much as I love her, and I think she's fabulous, and I do see a place for her in his cabinet, not necessarily as VP.
What do you think, Roz? What's your take on
I
it?
like her. She's a very spiritual person. You know, she did that Course in Miracles quite a few years ago. I read that. I just think she's wonderful. She's a wonderful spiritual lady.
VP?
That's right. And
Somewhere, but not necessarily.
right. I forgot you are a daily meditator.
I am.
So that's great that you see. I'm not shocked that you see something in Marianne. Someone is asking about, as we go on the VP discussion, Kamala Harris.
What do you think?
I'm not crazy about her. So I think that I'll just.
Is there something that, like, can you be a little more specific? Like, what is it about her that?
You know what? I should be totally honest and say I don't know that much about her. I really haven't listened to her that much. I'm not tuned into her. And so probably wouldn't be fair for me to make a comment on that.
What about you, Brian?
Not relatable for me. I watched her in a few of the debates, and I've seen her in interview formats. Articulate, intelligent, accomplished, but for whatever reason, she just doesn't relate for me. So I would have to say I'd prefer, somebody like a Booker, for example, or another female over a Harris. But Andrew may feel differently. I know he's talked about her in very complimentary terms. So
yeah, I want to like Harris as a VP pick.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a senator. She's an African-American woman. She's smart. She's strong. She's of a similar generation to Andrew. So there's all these reasons why one should like her. For me, I have the big thing about authenticity.
Good word, Tom.
Yeah, good word.
Good word.
And in those early debates, when she really went after Biden about the busing stuff, I felt like she was manufacturing a disagreement. And I don't think anybody thinks that Biden is a racist or Biden's anti-minority or anything like that. And yet she really was turning the knife. And so I worry that she will also come across inauthentic to other voters. And then she actually does not have a great ability to activate the African-American vote because of a lot of her past as a prosecutor. And I guess there were, some things that she had done that maybe, won't be a selling point.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with you all. I can't go with Kamala. A lot of people talk about Stacey Abrams in Georgia as like the VP and waiting for whoever gets the nomination. But I've only watched a little bit of her speaking, and I'm not as blown away as maybe other people are by Stacey Abrams. So I love the resume too, and I love how she helps us reach a certain demographic, and she's a woman as well. And that's fantastic. But ultimately, you want the full package, right? You want to check off all the boxes and feel really great about the person, that you can trust them, that you look up to them, that you feel like they're thinking several steps ahead, that they can get stuff done, they can build relationships. And I guess with Yang, it's hard to pair him with someone because he's so unique too, right?
Yes, right.
True.
Yes, right.
So at any rate, I know we're almost at an hour and a half, so I'm gonna thank you, Roz and Brian, for number one, for all of the volunteer work that you guys are doing in Massachusetts, calling, writing letters, putting stuff all over the
Donating.
car,
We've each
donating.
donated 30 times to the campaign.
Oh.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Please.
Amazing. You guys are setting a great example. And I think when we look back, can you imagine? Can you just imagine if he got to the White House, how amazing that would be? I would look forward to watching the press conferences again. I would look forward to the interviews he would do. I would look forward to, I also think, I am currently an expat living in Europe. And I know that President Trump talks about how when Obama was president, other countries laughed at us. I will tell you that a lot of people in the rest of the world are not super impressed by President Trump.
Very diplomatically put, Tom.
Beautifully put, yes.
And I think they would be impressed by Yang. I think they would be like, whoa, this guy is actually like a true American innovator who's thinking outside the box and can listen as well as speak and is thoughtful and considered and is, able to set a vision that isn't necessarily America versus the rest of the world.
No.
Which is, I think, encouraging.
Unifying. He's a real unifying voice at a time where we need that, I think, more than anything.
Oh, my God. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Roz and Brian, you guys have been amazing.
This has been fun.
Thank you for all you do, Tom. And your channel is amazing. And we're so deeply appreciative of everything you do on behalf of the campaign. So keep up the work.
I will. And thank you so much for the encouragement. I'm so glad that you have come across the channel in the past. And I intend to keep going till we win our second term. And actually probably till Andrew gets on that helicopter after 8 years and flies away to whatever he ends up doing, like president of Columbia University or something like that.
We'll be welcome.
Yeah. Well, with that, I will say goodbye, nerds. Do you want to say goodbye, nerds?
Goodbye, nerds.
I love it. Love it.
Thank you.
See you guys later.
Okay. Take care.